Documents for your land and property? Do you need the right information on how you can prevent your building from being demolished? Then tune in to Town Planning Program on Eagles 102.3 FM Abuja every Thursday by 4:30 p.m.
We are the future. We are the truth.
Hello, property owners in Abuja. Do you know where your land is located? Do you wish to recertify it or acquire a C of O? Do you wish to write site reports for your plots? Are you sure of the specific use of your land? If so, what do you want to build? Hope you have gotten an approval to build and you are not blocking any public facilities like access road, drainages, or encroaching into other plots, as building without approval is illegal and punishable by demolition.
A town planner can help you secure your land and property development according to Abuja Master Plan and other legislations.
Oh yes! Hurry! Call a town planner today to avert future problems. For more information, please locate us at plot 2047 Michael Okbara Way, Wuse Zone 5, Abuja. This message is brought to you by Nigerian Institute of Town Planners FCT chapter.
We are
Now this is your radio experience. You can count on Eagles 102.3 FM Abuja. Now you already know this is Thursday, and every Thursday at the 4:30 hour, the men of the town planning crew are literally here to give us more information about town planning, and I get that I'll be learning a thing or two today on the show. And we have Agbato in the studio, and he's here with some handsome men. Hi, Agbato.
Good evening, listeners. It's nice to be with you once again. Yeah, on today's program, we'll be looking at the topic of youth and recreation in the city of Abuja, issues and prospects. Before I introduce the discussants to you, let me remind you that this program is sponsored by the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, located at plot 2047 Michael Okbara Way, Wuse Zone 5, Abuja. And we are open on Mondays to Fridays from the hours of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily. And we have two phone numbers that we encourage our listeners to phone into in the course of the program. And the numbers are 0907 353 0044. I repeat, 0907 353 0044. And the other number is 0908 766 8888. I come again. 0908 766 8888. Like I earlier mentioned, our topic for today is youth and recreation in the city of Abuja, issues and prospects. And I have two gentlemen with me who are professional town planners, and they belong to the Youth Forum of Town Planners here in FCT. They are Town Planner Theophilus Louis Usman.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And the other colleague is Town Planner Mohammed Lawa Shaibu.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Good. Having introduced them, let me start straight away by asking, what is your idea of recreation? Who want to start? Any of you? Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much for that question. Recreation, to me, is a generic word that. Okay. Recreation is a generic word that denotes different activities that people do during their leisure time for their own pleasure, and it's kind of subjective sometimes because recreation means different thing to different people. Some people read for recreation, some play games, some go out for nature scene, site visitation. But for the purpose of this discussion today, we would focus more on physical recreation. That's any recreation done outdoors within any given space.
Oh, thank you, Town Planner Theophilus Louis Usman. So, invariably today we are focusing on the physical activity aspect of recreation more, right?
Yeah.
Good. That takes me to the next question. What recreational facilities are available in Abuja, and how do they benefit the youth? You can comment, Town Planner Shuaibu.
In Abuja, I'm sure if you're listening to this program, you'll understand how Abuja is set up as a city, in the sense that there are different hierarchies in the urban system, going from the neighborhood to the district to the sector and then to the city. And you have different land uses within the city. For example, for the commercial land use, you have an entire district that's dedicated to commercial activity, which is the central business district. And then within neighborhoods, you have neighborhood markets and neighborhood squares. And within district, you also have district markets and the malls. So also applies to recreation. For recreation purpose, within neighborhoods, you have what's called neighborhood parks. And these neighborhood parks are supported by children's playgrounds that are distributed quite evenly. And then in districts, you have what we call district parks. And then for the entire city level, we also have city parks. And I'll give you some examples. Millennium Park, which is the biggest park in Abuja, is a city park in a sense. And then we also have the district of Kukwaba, which in entirety is a recreational district, where you have the Abuja National Stadium. You also have the amusement park, Magic Land amusement park, formerly Wonderland. And then in districts, you also have district parks. There are parks in Wuse, there are parks in Utako, so many different districts. These are the kind of recreational facilities that you can find within the city.
Interesting. Given your categorization of these recreational facilities, I want to know, let the viewers know, are these available recreational facilities enough to cater for the growing population of Abuja as it is today? You can
Okay,
comment, Theophilus.
let me comment here. I would like to stress that there is an acute shortage of recreational facilities within the city. There is a research published by Cyril in 2016 that shows that only 11% of the recreational spaces that were planned for the FCT, that's the phase 1 of the FCT, have been implemented. And because of this, there is an acute shortage of recreational spaces within the city. And another factor that contributes to this shortage is the rising gentrification in the city, where these recreational spaces are being converted to other uses, forcing people out of the proximity to where these spaces are. And I would like to stress, just like my colleague mentioned, recreational spaces should actually be accessible within 5 to 15 minutes walking distance for both neighborhood parks and district parks respectively. But we have a case where people travel long distances to access these recreational spaces. I would also like to stress that in a city where where a mall is regarded as a recreational space, that shows that that city is very dysfunctional because of the inaccessibility of these spaces to the public.
Okay, fine. When you say recreational facilities ideally should be accessible within 5 to 15 minutes of walking, but we know it is not so today for the general users of these facilities. True?
Yeah, very correct.
So, which means that takes us to the next question. What challenges do youth face in accessing these recreational facilities?
Well, we have to understand the context of it when we're talking of youth and parks or recreational facilities, especially in a country like Nigeria. We know Nigeria has the highest percentage of youth population in the world, in the sense that 70% of our population about 70% are youth, and the youthful population are those that are mostly engaged in active recreational activities. Those are the physical ones. The older population may engage in recreational activities like maybe just sitting down, playing chess, chatting, things like that. But when it comes to active physical activity, it's more on the youth. And having this kind of high youth population, the demand for recreation is very, very high. And you will see that if you take a stroll on a Saturday morning in anywhere in Abuja, you see people jogging, playing badminton, playing football on the roads. You see them doing this in parks. You see them doing it in clover leaves. That's your overhead bridge. In some overhead bridges, that's round area, that's grass. You see people playing football there in the evenings. So the demand for recreation is very high. But the access to this kind of to proper recreational spaces is low, because the priority for a lot of developers is economic returns, the profits, and there's a seemingly low the perception of recreational spaces is that they don't provide that kind of financial benefit. So there isn't a lot of incentive for people to build parks or maintain parks, and even when parks are allocated, you see that some of these park owners begin to change the use and invite things like maybe suya spots or fish joints or beer parlors, things like that inside the park, because they have to make as much money from the park as they can. And so these are some of the challenges in these places being accessible. Just to hammer on that point a little bit, the selling of maybe alcohol or some kind of things may also deter some people from going to this kind of parks to go and recreate and just enjoy the space.
Interesting. But again, let me come. We know this program is for the youth. And what is your definition of youth? I want to know the age range.
The age range for the youth is very subjective, because there's no one definition. But if we are going by the United Nations, it's from the age of 15 to, some say 25, some say 32, and then the African Charter is from 15 to 35. In Nigeria, a lot of people also consider the youth under 40 if you are using the not too young to run act. So true. There are so many different, it's a spectrum.
Yeah, okay. For me, I think the wider we define youth, the better for our population, the better for their health. So I want to take it beyond what the UN has defined and what the African Charter has defined as those under 40.
Well, those other 40, they are welcome. They are welcome to be part of the youth demographic.
Yes. And again, let me stress that the idea of physical activity, recreation thing, it's not only for the youth. It's for the totality of, the demographic population of a place. Those who regard themselves as senior citizens and over to also encourage to be involved in physical activity as a way of recreation.
Absolutely, and it's very good for their health as well.
Exactly. Let me remind you again that this program is sponsored by the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, FCT chapter, located in Wuse Zone 5, Abuja. And we have 2 telephone numbers you can call in to. The first one is 0907 353 0044. And the second telephone number is 0908 766 8888. Gentlemen, let us look at these other arising issues. In what way do you think the city can promote recreation, especially targeting at the youth? Theophilus, okay. Please start with that.
All right. My take on this is, you see, when we look at the programs coming up in the city, like we have this Abuja Marathon, so we expect to have more like that. That can spur or encourage more physical activities among youth, and also having all this, where we have all these hiking groups and other forms of recreational activities that can be promoted by the city. It's something that can spur up a youth's participation. All right.
Shuaibu, yeah. So what do you have to add there?
To add to that, A lot of the responsibility for this, as far as the government or the city manager are concerned, falls on the Department of Parks and Recreation, who are doing a decent job in terms of park management. But when it comes to the recreation aspect, that's where now they need to now hammer on. Of course, the department is doing a lot of good things throughout the city. But if you take an example, AQ, there's a sitcom, a comedy show called Parks and Recreation. It's an American show. And when you look at that, you understand just how broad the responsibilities of the Department of Parks and Recreation is. This show is set around the Civil Service Office of the Parks and Recreation Department of a fictional city. And they do things like organizing concerts, they do things like organizing inter-district competitions or inter-neighborhood competitions for different kinds of sports. They do things like shows, night shows, they do things like park cleaning activities that's done in an entertaining way and invite a lot of people. So these are some of the things that the city can do to not only manage parks but to also foster recreation within the city. We also need to improve our public spaces. Now, public spaces, like he mentioned earlier, you see a lot of pressure in malls, in public malls, especially during public holidays. And the reason for that is because public malls offer something public spaces are supposed to offer, which is one, interesting spaces. There's a term called Instagrammable places, right? Where people would like to go and take pictures. Yeah. And this is something that malls offer a lot of people. A lot of people go there just to take pictures to post online. And you know, Instagrammability is becoming very popular among the youthful population. So public spaces are supposed to offer that. We need to invest a lot in public spaces. And we need to also think of how we can improve the financial returns of these public spaces, because these spaces, the most direct impacts they have are social impacts and health impacts, right? Social, environmental, and health impacts. But they do not have economic impacts per se, except you really think through how can we derive money from having these public spaces. Those kind of things will incentivize not just the city, but also private individuals, stakeholders, to invest in parks and public spaces.
Okay, I also like to come in here. You know, having publics, these recreational spaces, does a lot for our social capital. Now we are in the technology phase where everybody just stay indoors. We are like keyboard warriors. We don't go out to meet people. We don't socialize. But where you have these recreational spaces, it gives room for people to meet each other and grow. Like, let me share a personal experience. Like me, myself, the best friend I have today, I met him in the children's playground, and that's because we had it in our neighborhood as at then. Yeah. So the guy is my friend till today, and even extended to our families. So, reflecting on this topic, I begin to wonder, where would my own children play if the city keeps growing like this? If all these parks are being converted to commercial uses, where would my own children make their own friends? So this is one aspect, one benefit that recreational spaces does for us that a lot of people don't see, and the harm is really insidious, because at the end of the day, nobody relates with each other. The only spaces we know today as recreational spaces are more like clubs. How many of us want our children to be going to clubs to meet their friends?
No way.
It has this social stigma.
Yeah.
And so
interesting. So, following for what you said now, there should be a deliberate policy to create children's playground and other parks that can accommodate the youth, isn't it?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes, of course.
And I've also heard of this hiking around Abuja, hiking, because there are a lot of hills and mountains around.
Yeah.
And I think it's becoming a bit popular now. What do you think?
Yeah, it is. But the problem is, even those hiking spots now, we have estates going there to develop. Estates now climb mountains. That's the challenge we are having.
Estates are hiking too.
The estates are hiking. So we don't have this scenic view in the environment anymore. Having these places where people go to hike, it doesn't just improve physical health. Even your visual appreciation for nature has been hijacked by the virtue of these estates going there. So by the time they deface the environment, maybe where you are going to hike now, you see a house there, and it will be less attractive. And the problem is, these spaces, the closer they are to the city, the more attractive they are for this, which push people further away to places that are kind of unsafe. So we don't have these spaces within the city any longer.
So there's a contending competition between our physical development of housing and the recreational spaces.
Yes, and recreational spaces are the ones losing because they keep on reducing in number. We don't have them anymore.
And let's not make any mistake. This is not peculiar to Nigeria. One of the most popular parks in the world, Central Park in New York. There are some initiatives or some movements to kind of bring in housing into Central Park because of the housing shortage in New York. You know, there's a housing crisis worldwide, and there are some people that have the opinion that, wait, why do we have this so many hundreds of hectares of park right in the middle of the city? That's a very prime area. So there are some people that have the opinion that, look, why not build houses here to meet the rising housing demand? But there's a lot of pushback on that by other town planners all over the world because they understand the value of the park sitting right there, right in the middle of New York City. So same thing applies here to a lot of places.
Let me conclude on this also.
Yeah, go ahead.
To add to what he said, you know, we try to emphasize having parks even at the smallest level, even at the estate level. We now have a situation where before you bring your plans for approval, they check how many percentage have been allocated for green spaces within your estate. You are supposed to have a children's playground within that estate, but you see that they will only bring it on the site plan. Then when it comes to implementation, the developer just looks at it and like, recreational space for who? And then they put one additional block of flats there because to them this will give me more money. How many the children can play indoors? And then you begin to have health challenges, like you see children don't even have places to play. You can't go to the estate now without seeing children playing on the roads, and they often bump into each other because the spaces are not even there for them. So at the end of the day, everyone stays indoors, and then your children start getting fat, and so it's really a serious challenge.
Yeah, okay. Considering these challenges, what are the prospects and solutions for improving youth recreation in Abuja?
Well, one of the most interesting things about town planning in a profession is that it cuts across pretty much every aspect of our life, because our life is very highly determined by our physical environment. You know that the way you plan cities affects the safety of the city, or sometimes determines the safety of the city, determines the health, it determines so many other things. So for this, the one of the first solutions is to go back to see the provisions of the plan in terms of parks. We know that the plan says within a specific radius area there should be a children's playground. Within a specific area there should be a neighborhood park. Within a specific area there should be a district park. Are those implemented? How have those been developed in the different districts, in the different neighborhoods that we have around Abuja? And then, like you said, within even the smaller spaces, within people's private estates, are there provisions for small places for people to recreate? And it's not just parks. We are talking about public spaces. The streets, there's something called home zone, where people use the street as a public space. They can come out to relax. We also need spaces where people can just go out to relax without the pressure of spending money. And this is what's called thought spaces. You know, the first space is your home, the second space is your work, school, things like that. And then this thought space is where you can just go and relax. We need a lot of that in the city. If you look at some more developed cities in the world, or cities in more developed countries, you'll see some areas like street corners where there are just benches. Something as simple as a bench can make somewhere a thought place. And if you look at even our villages, before, when you put a bench when you put a tree, a mango tree, they say let's meet under the mango tree. Yeah, that's a public space. That's from our cultural perspective. You know, that idea of somewhere you can just go to relax is a thought space, is a public space. So we need a lot of these places all around the city.
Okay. And to add to what you've just said, if we have to have more of those places where people can just go and relax and recreate without paying money, that underscores the need for the government to produce or to provide those spaces.
Yes.
As versus individuals. Because individuals will want to make money from whatever you are allocating to them in the way of recreational parks development.
You know, the responsibility of this largely lies on the government. You know, before any project is taken on, there's something called cost benefit analysis, where it's all about numbers, right? But eventually people began to do environmental impact analysis. Now there's environmental and social impact analysis, right? What's the positive impact of a project to the society? And I'll give an example of Netherlands, which is one of the healthiest countries in the world, just because of how much they recreate. And that recreation may not even be in the form of relaxation, just in their daily mobility. They cycle a lot there, and that promotes the health of the people that are living there. So when you look at the broader picture of providing these public spaces, it cuts beyond money. But if you want to talk about the financial returns, I give an example of New York Central Park. There's a block close to New York called the Billionaires Row, and one of the way they sell the real estate there is that you have a view of Central Park. So just looking at the park from your house makes that house more valuable in terms of money. So there are so many ways you can explore how to increase the financial benefit of having parks and public spaces around the city, and then also look at the other benefits like social benefits, health benefits, environmental benefits, all of that.
Thank you. Listener, let me remind you that this program is sponsored by Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, SCT chapter, located at plot 2047 Michael Okpara Way, Wuse Zone 5, Abuja. And we can be accessed from Mondays to Fridays from the hours of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily. And like I mentioned before, we have 2 telephone numbers. The lines are open for the public to call. And the first one is 0907 353 0044. And the second telephone number is 0908 766 8888. Please now, we're expecting your calls, please now. Gentlemen, let us look at another aspect of what we should be doing. How are young planners elsewhere promoting recreation in cities? How are young planners elsewhere promoting recreation in the cities?
Okay, I'm looking at the aspect of placemaking and the activities they take there. So, like, if there is an area designated for maybe cycling, you find out that a lot of people go out there, and that place becomes known for cycling. If there's a place where people go out to gym or to work out, you see that that place begin to have an identity. So sometimes all these activities people take makes the location become a very lucrative place for recreation. Like, for instance, let me use myself as an example. Because of the lack of recreational spaces where I live, there's actually a pedestrian bridge that is rarely used, and that's where people have turned to a kind of outdoor gym. People go there to recreate. So if we can identify such recreational spaces, let's say these places have been termed recreation, and then we go there, we take our activities there, it will do a lot to preserve that recreational space. And another challenge for people why we don't have so much recreational space is because a lot of people are not even aware that there are such areas designated within their neighborhoods. Like, how many people even have access to their neighborhood plans, their district plans, to know that this place was supposed to be designated for this activity? So it's inaccessible to the public unless you go to some of these government offices, like the Department of Urban and Regional Planning, before you even see some plans. So if plans can be made available and easily accessible, people can identify these spaces, and by which you begin to take their activities there, and that can help preserve those spaces to retain their use for what they are. Because it's the lack of knowledge about these places that make them easily converted, because who will even ask? They don't even know.
Yes. Yeah, Shoaib, think of this. I'm looking at cycling as a recreational activity. Cycling in itself is very health promoting.
Yes.
But these days, it's difficult to see people ride bicycle, even within an estate or outside the estate.
So, in fact, you have fed me what I like to eat. You know, I like to promote walkability in cities, and walkability is not only walking; it stretches to cycling,
Yes.
Two-wheel mobility, the likes of that. But the onus of walkability is that you have to invite people to walk. You have to invite people to cycle. It's very rare for people to demand to cycle. That I give Netherlands as an example, which is the most popular cycling country in the world. One of the reasons why they demanded, and it's a unique case for them, they demanded to cycle is because there was a very high death rate of children, like motor accidents, killing a lot of children in the 70s or so. And then there was nationwide protests, right? A lot of anti-car movements trying to reduce the car dependency in the city. But it's very difficult to expect people to cycle when certain provisions are not made for them.
Exactly.
One of the provision is infrastructure, and the infrastructure includes things like cycling lanes, includes things like street lights for cycling, traffic lights, bike parking infrastructure. There's no provision for bike parking in Abuja. Like it's not a requirement. There's minimum car parking requirements, like a building of so bedrooms, you need so number of parking spaces, but there's no provision for cycling. So that's the infrastructure part. The second is public transportation, because people tend to go on long distances. So the idea of infusing public transportation with cycling is, when I cycle from my house to a bus stop or to a train terminal, I can leave my bike there. Remember, good bike parking facilities. I can park my bike there, get in a bus, and go to my next destination, and then walk the last mile, or get on another bike. These are shared bike. They are shared biking systems.
Exactly.
Another one is even something like street trees. Trees alone also invite people to bike, because we live in our climate. Some people will say, if you bike to work, you are going to be sweaty unless they provide showers in the workplace. But there are places that have similar climate to us, or even warmer, and people are still biking because these other provisions are made in terms of the infrastructure, the bike lanes, the shared bike. And then we also have policies. There have to be policies that invite people to bike, that require some of these things to be provided. If you provide these, and it's a guarantee, it's a statement of fact, you know, it's not a theory. In different cities it has worked. When you provide bike infrastructure, you provide public transportation to support biking, you have policies that will encourage people to bike, people will bike. It has happened in Netherlands, it has happened in Singapore, it's happening now in Paris. In Paris, a lot of car lanes have been converted to bike parking lanes, and this started after the COVID-19 pandemic, when a lot of lanes were changed, and it's happening in so many other cities like Vancouver. So if you
Hello.
people will bike.
Hello.
Good
Good
evening, sir.
evening. Good evening. Please, can we know where you are calling? Oh, sorry, network. Please, we encourage you to call back again. The lines are still open. Yes. Let me also continue on that discourse. You understand? We have a peculiar culture here in our country where we think biking is not for the, you know,
For the elites.
for the elites. Only poor people should bike. So that's beyond the infrastructure that we don't have.
Yes.
So what is the guarantee that if this infrastructure are provided, cycling paths, and park in the terminals to park your bike, what will be the usage rate? I think we have a challenge there. What do you think?
Sorry, Stephen, can I take this?
Correct.
I can almost guarantee that if these provisions are made, people will bike, because we have to understand that Nigeria is a poor country, right? It's a statement
a
of fact.
fact.
Nigeria is a
It's a
poor
fact.
country. The people that have access to cars, the people that have or own a car, are like the top 10-20%, right? A lot of people walk, and not just Nigeria, Africa. The highest form of transportation in Africa is walking. About 70% of people move around by walking. So we can't continue to cater to the smaller population, saying that they would prefer to use their cars, when in reality a lot of people are walking, and a lot of people are finding it difficult to access their rights to the city when they don't have a own car, and that's where we call car dependency. I always say that Abuja is the most car dependent city in Nigeria, and these are some of the reasons why. I also give an example of it's Bogota, right? I think it's a city in Bogota. What the mayor did, sorry if I pronounced that wrongly, something he did to promote biking is, one, he himself is an avid biker, but when it came to the budget, right, how they implemented their infrastructure development, when a street is being repaired or being fixed, the bike lane is what's fixed first before the car lane. So you see people having very beautiful bike lanes. If there's any repair, the bike lane takes priority. In Netherlands, I keep coming to this, when snow falls, right, when there's snow, the bike lane is cleared first, right? The snow is cleared off the bike lane first before the car lane. So it's those kind of priority. When you give the priority to the biker, a lot of people will feel like, I'm actually a big citizen on my bike. I have all these priorities, and the ideas around biking will begin to change. And then there's also e-bikes. In the time that we are in now, biking must not be pedaling the whole time, doing this rigorous. There are e-bikes that are more affordable. You just have to push a button and we are going very silent and nice, environmentally friendly.
Exactly, that is the point. Biking is healthier for the environment than our cars that we generate carbon monoxide every time we ride them. So if we want a cleaner city, a greener city in Abuja, we must, as a matter of deliberate policy, begin to think how we can provide biking infrastructure and also encourage our people to use them as much as they can.
Okay, just to add to what he said, there's this thing about mixed mobility, where our transportation system accommodates different mode of transportation. But the problem with most of our cities is that we plan for cars. We don't even have walkways, adequate walkways for people to walk. So this again reduces the walkability within the city. And another challenge with that discourage biking in this city is the way we drive, the way people drive. Now, if you have to use a bike, you are driving and you are thinking about this, our green taxi people. They just park anywhere, they just flag. So the parks, the bicycle lanes are not separated. Yeah, exactly. So it's scary for you to even drive within the city without thinking of somebody. Maybe you have to look to your right, your left, your front, back, sometimes even up and down before you move, because you are not safe. Yeah. So that in itself discourages people from biking.
So safety is a big challenge.
Safety is a big challenge.
Because the bicycle owners have to contend with the motor car users on the same road, which should not be.
Yes.
So if we have a separate biking path and lanes provided that isolate users, from vehicle owners, I think people will be encouraged to do that.
Yes, and Abuja has a very good opportunity to do this. There was a study by UN Habitat, I think in sometime around 2013, and it revealed that Abuja has one of the highest land areas dedicated to roads. You can see how wide our roads are compared to any city in Nigeria and maybe even Africa. And so there's a very huge opportunity for us to have things like dedicated bus lanes, things like dedicated bike lanes, and then also things like other forms of public transportation that will all improve the recreation in the city through biking. Just tying it back down to our topic.
Let me appeal to the listeners that they can call in spite of the problematic network. Just keep trying and trying. I'm sure one or two of you may be lucky to get through to us. The program today, as usual, is sponsored by Nigerian Institute of Town Planners SCT chapter, located on Michael Okpara Way, Wuse Zone 5, Abuja. And we can be accessed from Mondays to Fridays from the hours of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily. Gentlemen, you are both young planners, and you have what we call Young Planners Forum. True, isn't it?
That's
yes,
correct.
Very correct.
What ways do you think Young Planners Forums can make our cities more robust and sustainable? Who takes the shot first?
Well, one of it is what we are doing here right now.
Yeah.
Public outreach, in a sense, sensitization, just letting people more aware of their roles in the city and how the city can benefit them. Because there's something I always have in the back of my mind is that cities are changing at a very, very fast rate. We know this with the case of urbanization. The population in cities are growing more than they've ever grown before. And because of that, all the existing urban theories that we have, which in fact has been largely Africa exclusive, right? All the urban theories that says, for example, the richer people live outside the city and the lower income people live inside the city. You see that it doesn't apply in Nigeria, you know? So a lot of urban theories, of global urban theories are Africa exclusive. So that's one. And then two, a lot of these theories did not foresee the sharp rate of urbanization we are having in Africa. Africa and Asia are the regions with the highest rates of urbanization in the world. So as young planners, we are going to face a very big challenge in future in terms of urban management, because we pretty much don't have anything to use to manage the cities. The problems that we may face in cities are problems that have never been envisioned before. So we have to really pick our boots up and see how we can begin to change things as quickly as possible. And that's what we are trying to do as much as we can within the Young Planners Forum, which is an arm of the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners.
What is your addition, Theophilus?
Yeah, and having discussions like this and public outreach does a lot to enlighten people about the city and sustainable development within the city. Looking at the topic, we don't know how bad the roads in lack of recreational spaces have done to us. Let me just share another personal experience. There was this time, because I have a dad that has been ill, and because of that he has been indoors for some time. So I needed to take him to a park, just somewhere he can just sit and rejuvenate. And where I live in Kubwa, I had to drive him all the way from Kubwa down to Millennium Park here in Abuja, here in the city center. And when we got there, I had a challenge looking for where to park, and by the time I was able to locate one, the park was closed. So the aim of me bringing him to the city just to recreate has been defeated. So this is one of the numerous challenges we are having with accessing parks. Recreation, and it's really, really bad. It's really bad.
Just because you mentioned Millennium Park, I just want to, but before I go there, just to say, I remember the statement where someone said a lot of people drive maybe 20 minutes to go into a gym and then run on the treadmill, and they will just run to the gym. But talking about Millennium Park, I think we should also commend some parks that are doing great in Abuja.
True.
One of them is Millennium Park, which is like the family park in Abuja. If you go there on a weekend, it's full to capacity, and that's also a nod to the demand for recreation. Another is Jabi Park, which personally is my favorite park in Abuja, but it needs to be better maintained in terms of the sanitation. But it's my favorite just because of the variety of activity there: horse riding, football, volleyball, go-karting. No, not go. There's quad biking, table tennis. It's the most. Is the park with the highest level of variety in Abuja, Jabi Lake Park. It's a very important park for this city, and I really wish it could be better maintained in terms of the sanitation, so more people will go there. There's also City Park in Wuse that has. City Park is doing a good job in terms of commercializing recreation or parkness. So what they do is that they have different areas like the 5-a-side football that people come to pay money to play. They have they have a children's playground, people come to pay money. They have different kinds of things, and I know that yes, access to this park should be free, but it's a way of promoting investment from the private sector in terms of parks. So there are some parks that are doing really well and basically carrying the weight of recreation of the city on their shoulder, while other people are doing a lot of things like hiking in other spaces.
Let's make the point clear. If parks are privately run, they cannot be free. They cannot be free. If they are privately run, they cannot be free.
That much is true. What the government can do is run parks publicly and then lease some spaces or make some activities within the park private. So you can walk into any park freely, but then to carry out some activities, you then pay to carry out some of those activities.
So it should be a mix, a combination.
Absolutely.
Of both private run and government run.
The thing is, some people don't even have any problem paying for it.
Exactly.
Let it be available where they stay, where they live.
Exactly.
That would encourage people to go there. But when you look at the fact that you have to travel some 20 kilometers to access your nearest park is not nice.
Yes.
So they just have to be within your neighborhood. It's something that you should be able to walk to, not drive to.
Oh, gentlemen, this has been an interesting discussion. Unfortunately, time is not our friend here. And let me thank our two gentlemen, Town Planner Theophilus.
Thank you very much for having me.
And Town Planner Shoaibu.
Thank you very much.
And from me, Dr. Emmanuel Agbato, I will say good evening.
And for me, Benedicta Henshaw, we are taking a walk to the recreational parks at this point.
Hi there. Do you want to know how to get the correct approval or documents